7 Lessons from My Father. My father has lived a full life as a school principal, a university professor, teacher, husband, father and a grandfather, an author and a poet, though mostly as an inspiration to many around him. I'm happy to share with you his life's lessons. Number 1. We were encouraged not to follow fads or trends. You can do anything you want, as long as it's not what everyone else is doing. I wanted to be a regular kid, so in 6th grade, I wanted a flat top because everybody had one. I also wanted parachute pants and an earring. I wanted a Genera shirt. I wanted to peg my pants, which I wanted to be Guess jeans. I wanted a rat's tail, and most of all, I wanted a Powell Peralta skateboard. But to my disappointment, I didn't get a single one of these. Instead, I got a clear message to never blindly follow all of the people around me without better understanding where it was taking me. And that has made all the difference in the world. Number 2, cheer the small things, or better yet, cheer everything. My dad isn't American by birth, though he is now a very proud citizen of the United States. Yet he barely knows any of the rules to any American sport. He can't identify team members, though to his credit, he usually knows which team he is watching. But he cheers louder than anyone in the stadium. He cheers from the depths of his belly, with the true intent of having each cheer reach every player out there. He cheers if his team is winning or losing. In fact, he cheers for both teams. He cheers during timeouts, and he cheers during the halftime. He cheers at the concession stands. He cheers at everything. Why not? One of the biggest cheers my father ever led was for a soccer team I was on as a 10-year-old. We were easily the worst team in the league. We didn't win a single game from our first 8 in a 9-game season. And none of the games were even close to being close. On the final game of the season, we tied 2-2. To this day, I remember the admiration my father bestowed upon each team member, calling out and congratulating every individual play and player, our offense, our defense, our team pride, that led to a remarkable 2-2 tie. He even handed everybody dollar bills. You'd have thought we won a state championship for completing our season. 0 wins, 8 losses, and 1 tie. More generally, my father treats life like this. He cheers all the time about everything. It's a good way to be. I'm lucky to have him as my best cheerleader. Number 3, hugs. Go give someone a hug. They probably need it. So do you. My father invented a game when my older brother was born, and he's played it ever since with all of his children and his grandchildren. He'd give us hugs, and the strength of those hugs was directly proportional to a number that we'd request. You could ask for a 10 hug, or a 150 hug, or a 1,000 hug. When you asked for a 1,000,000 hug, he'd look at you incredulously and gasp, as if there was no possible way you could survive the administration of a 1,000,000 hug, and that you were a crazy person for even suggesting it. Then he'd hug you and squeeze all the air out of you. You couldn't breathe for a moment, by design of course, but you'd laugh the whole way through because it was the perfect combination of affection and education, teaching us the concepts of magnitude and numbers. My father has always been exceptionally affectionate. He hugs all the time. Everyone loves hugs. Everyone needs hugs. Strangers and relatives, friends, lovers and enemies, the sick, and never forget about ourselves. We all need hugs. Last year, on a random day in August, I hugged 40 strangers. It was an amazing, beautiful day, and I owe this to my father. Number 4, don't talk smack before the game, or ever. Unless you are planning to go pro someday, playing sports is about many things besides just winning a game. It might be about developing a lasting relationship, doing exercise, or learning more about somebody who is only going to be your opponent for 48 or maybe 60 minutes. People usually don't have something to prove until you give them something to prove. Talking smack in sports, and more broadly in life, pretty much ensures you'll get smacked back one way or another. You can compete your hardest, put forward everything you have, while still being a gentleman. You'll win more than just a game. Number 5, it's okay to be a child sometimes. Embarrass yourself. Nobody cares if you're acting out anyway. When asked to show identification, I remember my father pretending he was an orchestra conductor for a security guard at a gated residential community. When they used to play African tribal music at Banana Republic back in the 80s, my dad would find a makeshift drum and dance and drum along to the music, to the amusement of everyone in the store. He wore costumes when it wasn't Halloween or Purim. He tore his clothes as entertainment. He spoke in made-up accents, and he performed rituals over champagne gone bad. He never cared what people thought and taught us to do the same. It's a hard thing to learn because it's so ingrained in our minds to care, but it's a freeing and beautiful lesson. We all need downtime from being serious. Number 6, and this is the hardest one to learn, but it's inevitable. Things will get bad. You must persevere so you can see it get better. Like every person we know, my father has lived to see days of pure, elated joy, and also the depths of mind-numbing pain. To the latter, my father was dealt an inconceivably difficult blow nowhere near the end of his life. In an instant, he lost his most precious, beautiful, empathetic, nurturing wife, my mother, finding himself a widower still in his 40s. No warning could have prepared him, not that he was afforded one. It took years, many trying, confusing years, filled with times of depression and uncertainty, but he rebuilt his life successfully. He found a wonderful new wife. He was blessed with 6 grandchildren of his own, and another 6 with his new wife. He built a dream house that he had talked about for 30 years. He wrote an autobiography that took him 15 years, a book that was temporarily a bestseller in his native homeland. Mostly, I think he finally found some peace after a decade of restlessness. And lastly, number 7, a gift doesn't always have to be a physical item. My father is pretty bad about birthdays. In fact, he's forgotten my own birthday several times, and he's not so good about planning for them, much less picking out a present. His greatest gifts to me were never watches or cars or clothing, though he did get me those. His greatest gifts were and continue to be love, support, and a series of life lessons that prepared my brothers and I for this world, alongside thousands of his students. And for that, I'm forever grateful. I am hoping to return a gift to him with this video, and would be so appreciative if you would tweet him at Samurai Nisim to tell him what you think of his life's lessons. Thanks for listening.